And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, one of my favorite games that I have in my collection is Suburbia. This is from Ted Ausbach, Bezier Games, and it's about building a city, and I think it's the finest city building game, which is a genre that I like quite a bit. So when I heard that he was making a sequel of sorts called The Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which is about a man who's maybe a bit insane but builds brilliant castles. In this game, you actually get to construct a castle, and it looks kind of like a castle layout plan type thing when you're done. I was very excited about it. But of course, this is, Ted had some hard road to follow with how much I like Suburbia. Well, let's take a look at this, a game in which you get to build a castle and see what it's like. Much of the game takes place around this board here. There's actually a bunch of boards put together. There are some goals that are placed here. There's quite a few goals that players are going to be doing over the course of the game. These goals are going to give out extra points at the end of the game for whoever has the most. This is having the most rooms that are this type. This is having the most money. This is having the biggest square footage. Square footage of each room is shown by the number on the back of a specific type. This is hallways. And this is having the most round rooms. There's all different sorts of goals, and players are going to be competing for those. That's one way to get points. Now, the way the game is going to be managed is through a deck of cards, and this deck of cards will change depending on how many players are playing over the game. At the beginning of the game, you're going to draw one card for each of these spots here, again, depending on how many players are in the game. But let's say it's a full four-player game. So I would draw a card for each spot. Each card that I draw is going to show a specific shape. So here, the first four cards show these specific shapes. So I need a 300, I need a 400, I need a 600, I need a 250. So, and I'm going to put each of those underneath one of these prices here. I need three more cards, so I have a 350, a 400, and a 100. 100. What were the other ones now? Man, my memory's bad. 400 and 350. Okay, so these are the rooms that are placed out here, and we'll talk a little bit more about rooms in a second. One player is going to be the master builder, and we're going to go around. Players are going to start with 15,000 in coins, and they'll also be keeping track of their score up here. Now, on each turn of the game, the person who is the master builder is going to pick the cost of each building, of each of these rooms. So he can move these around any way he wants. He just moves them around. Once he's finished, then starting with the player to his left and going around, each player can buy a room of their choice. They buy the room, they add it to their castle, they will pay that much money to the person who's the master builder. So the master builder's got to figure out how much they're willing to pay, and also he builds last, and he pays his amount of money to the bank. So let's say he wanted this blue room, he'll say, oh, I'll make it the cheapest, but then someone else might buy it instead. Instead of doing that, any player, including the master builder, can simply pass and take 5,000 from the bank. Each room that is not bought on a turn will have 1,000 coin put on it, and then you'll fill up the rooms for the next turn, but these will become worth more because eventually, if this costs 15,000 but there's 6 coins on it, that really only costs 9,000. So let's talk about castle building. Each player starts with this foyer here, which will start the game. They can place it either, they can place it this way or that. When you have these rooms, the rooms have to be at 90-degree angles, but whenever you get a room, you can take that room and add it any way you want around here. It just has to be a 90-degree angle. The rules are you must match one doorway with one other doorway. There must always be an outside door. You must have an open door to keep building. But you can put some doorways next to other walls. For example, if I, let's say I connected this kitchen here, and it has one doorway here, and later on I had another room put its wall up against that doorway. That'd be fine as long as this door was connected to something else in the castle. If you want to, instead of buying a room, you can always buy these hallways, which can connect rooms, or you can buy stairways. Stairways are the only way to build a downstairs room. Some of the rooms are considered downstairs rooms, and when you build them, the only way to build them is by connecting them to another downstairs room or to a stairway that comes from the upstairs rooms. Now, when you build a room, you're going to score for it. Each room has different things. Downstairs rooms will score a point for the upper left. You'll see this one here scores you 1 point. But it also, this one, every time you build a corridor, you will get a point. Also, when you build this room, every corridor you already have built gets a point. So downstairs rooms will be like that. Here's another downstairs room that gives you 2 points for each of the workrooms. Now, each room upstairs, they will be scored differently depending on the type of room. Many different rooms, for example, this salon here, this scores you 3 points, and it also scores you 2 points for each entertainment room that it's hooked up next to. Activity room, sorry, I call them entertainment rooms. So if I place this one in this particular spot, it would be worth 5 because it's 3, but it's next to this entertainment room here, the activity room, which is a sewing room. The sewing room is worth 4 points, but it's -1 for each of these if it's next to a utility room, next to a living room, or next to a sleeping room. Since I connected it to a living room, I would actually lose a point. So when I put this down, I get 4 points. If I put this here, I would get 5, but I would lose 1, so that would only score me 4 points. So you have to be cautious on that. And the activity rooms will score you negative points if they're even touching a room, even if there's no entrance between the room, if the walls are touching each other. Now, what this game wants to reward is when you manage to connect every door in a room to another room. You don't have to. But let's say, for example, I have this lilac cabinet here, and I connect it to that door. I build a hallway and connect the hallway to that door. And over here, I connect this room to this 9-pin alley, which I think is great. And then over here, I connect the porch. So I've connected all 4. Now, that's kind of a weird looking castle, but it's totally legal. By the way, this fence here can have nothing placed up against it. If you have an outside fence, nothing can be placed against it. But once you complete a room, you will get a bonus. Each bonus that you will score is different depending on the type of room. And you have a little scorecard to help you remember. If you completely do an activity room, you will get 5 extra points. If you completely do a food room, which are the yellow rooms, let's see if I can find a yellow room. Here's a food room for you. You get to go again. You get to take an extra turn. If you completely do a corridor or stairs, you get a free hallway or stairs. If you completely do a sleep room, then you can choose extra rooms, and what you'll do is you will take these rooms, you can pick from any pile you want, and put these rooms on top of the card pile, and when it's time to put new rooms out in the queue, you draw from that pile first. You can kind of pick the size of the rooms that you might want. If you complete an outdoor room, all the entrances connected to other entrances, you get 10,000. If you complete one of the utility rooms, you get 2 bonus cards, and you get to keep one of them. Now, players are going to get bonus cards at the beginning of the game. They're going to get 3 and keep 2. The bonus cards are pretty self-evident. They will give you bonus points at the end of the game if you complete, like this one here, 7 points if you have all 8 room types. This one here, 2 for each of your downstairs rooms, 2 for each room that's size 100, 2 for each room that's a corridor, 1 for each of your hallways, 2 for each activity room. Okay? So completing a utility room does that. If you complete a living room, like this one here, you rescore that room again. And if you complete a downstairs room, nothing happens. But if you complete a second downstairs room, then you get to pick any of those rewards which I just mentioned. It's kind of wild, but it only works for every 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th downstairs room that you have. Now the game will end when the deck of cards over here runs out, and then we do final scoring. People reveal their bonus cards, we reveal these, and you also get 1 point for every 10,000 you have left over. Whoever has the most points is the winner. Before I finish this up, I wanted to show you an example of what a castle might look like, because my castles were getting kind of sloppy there. But you can form some pretty cool castles, and the layout can look pretty neat like this. You just got to make sure it's legal, but that's not very hard, making sure entrances. But when you're done with the game, you can look at your castle and be like, wow, look at the castle that I built. For me, the biggest fun of this game is seeing your castle grow. And we laugh and joke, okay, I built a dungeon in mine and it's just I connected it to the 9-pin knockdown, and so if you do poorly at bowling, to the dungeons you go. Or I got a mushroom garden growing right next to the orchestra pit. There's just some interesting things that you can do, and it's fun. I get a kick out of every time having a different layout of the castle. And to me, that would be entertaining enough as it is. Gameplay itself is very interesting because it has a cool concept in which whoever is the master builder is going to place all those building tiles out there, and he has to decide how much they're going to each cost, and because he wants to get the most money he can and still buy the tile he wants, which is kind of a tricky proposition. I could say, well, I'm going to make mine really expensive, and I know I'm going to get it, but I'm going to pay a lot for it. I could make it cheaper, but then someone else might buy it. So you're trying to gauge what the other players want, what buildings that would be desirable to them, whether it's by shape or by type, and making that just cheap enough for them to buy, but enough so that you get some money out of the deal. That's great. Now, some folks I did find had some analysis paralysis points with this. They had a hard time deciding that. It was tough for them to decide where all the pieces are. And I could see that being a problem with some folks, but for me, I found it very entertaining and a big part of the game. The goal cards and the things at the end, one of the things I really enjoyed about this game is how easy they are. Not that they're easy to accomplish per se, but they're easy to understand. I don't have people saying, what does my bonus card mean? They're very straightforward. Now the bonus tiles, sometimes we have to look those up, but since everyone is going for those, not a problem, and you can see what folks are doing. You will and possibly get so caught up in building a cool castle that you can easily forget sometimes about the fact that you're trying to win a game. And it's interesting because you have to try to place the things just right. You have to know when to buy a hallway or a stairways. They're cheaper, but at the same time, and they don't score a lot of points, but you got to get them in there. But it's really all about these room bonuses, folks. These completion bonuses, I should say. As you complete the rooms. You don't have to complete rooms. You don't have to connect every entrance to another room, but you want to. And so it all comes down to figuring out what's best to do that, because these bonuses can be great. They can give you extra points and win you the game. And in case I didn't show it to you over the thing, there is a way here to keep track of points scored over the game. This goes up to 150. I don't know that I've scored that many over a course of the game or even came close. But I like that. This game is a medium weight game. That can feel heavy for some people because you're going to have to look around and say, if I build this here, I'll get a couple points and lose some. But after playing Suburbia, this is, I think, a little bit more focused of a game than Suburbia. In Suburbia, I have to check everyone else's boards. Here, I really only have to check mine. But there's still a level of interaction because of the one person being the master builder and other folks buying from that person. Very, very interesting. Knowing when to pass, take the 5,000. I like this quite a bit. Now, I'll admit, my biases are strong. I love castles. I love the idea of building my own castle. And I love the funky little ways that the castle comes out. But I also like building games themselves. I like a game that when I'm done, I look and say, hey, I came in last place, but that's still pretty cool. That's cool to me, and that's one of the reasons I like this so much. Now, the question people ask is, do you like it better than Suburbia? And I don't know at this point. I like the theme better than Suburbia, but Suburbia is still a very solid game, especially when you add in the expansion. A lot of cool stuff. And so I could play one or the other. Suburbia might be a little bit better at this point, but still, I think this game is an excellent one. There's a lot of options in it. I think the themes can appeal to people. It has a great visual effect, but also offers some pretty solid game. A little bit of monetary, trying to figure out the economic system, make sure you have enough money to buy the tiles you want, keeping an eye on your secret goals and the other goals, and then, of course, what the tiles themselves, how many points they give. Some pretty interesting things, and I think you'll never play the exact type of game twice. And flipping the card over to see what size tile you bring out, that's a great mechanism and very simple, and yet it works really well. So very, very enthusiastic thumbs up on me on this one. I was biased towards it when I heard about it, and I am so glad that it met my expectations. The Castles of Mad King Ludwig.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door. We're still...